Hello, and thank you for joining us today for a discussion marking World Menopause Day 2022. The British Menopause Society has chosen as its theme for this year, continuing the conversation. So to start off with, what is the menopause? The strict medical definition is that a woman is in the menopause when she has not had a period for 12 months. However, a woman can experience the symptoms of menopause for anything up to 10 years before being in the menopause, and this is known as the perimenopause. And during that time, a woman can suffer anything up to 40 different symptoms, which you can now see on the screen. A small clarification, every woman of reproducing age will experience the menopause regardless of whether she's had a child or not. Another statistic for you is that in a recent survey for Channel 4 of women aged 45 to 55, 84% said they struggle with sleeplessness and exhaustion, 73% suffer with brain fog or memory loss, 70% struggle with hot flushes, and 69% struggle with depression and anxiety. Obviously, all of these symptoms will have an impact on women in the workplace. And indeed, it has become so severe that another recent survey has identified that 10% of the female British workforce have left their jobs because of feelings of anxiety, unable to cope with the demands of their jobs, or feeling they're not performing. So today I'm joined by a number of colleagues who very kindly agreed to join me in having a conversation about their own experiences of the menopause and also how they think that we at Cundall, both the company and individuals, can help support our colleagues. So if you'd like to introduce yourselves.
My name is Andy Weddell. I'm Associate Director in the London office.
My name's Jenny Thompson. I'm a Senior Engineer in the London office.
My name's Natasha Cox-Abasingi. I'm a Senior Marketing and BD Executive in the London office, and I'm also co-chair of GAIN, our gender network.
My name's Natalie Caswell. I'm the receptionist in the London office.
I'm Julian Sutherland. I'm a partner here in the London office.
Natalie, would you like to give us a quick overview of your experience of the menopause so far, some of the symptoms you've experienced and how it's affected you in the workplace?
So for me, I ignorantly didn't really know much about the menopause up until about probably 4 years ago. Certainly made more aware of it with the Davina documentary, and then having a sister 3 years older than me who's actually going through it now. I can say that I am perimenopausal because I know I have lots of the symptoms, mainly the brain fog and the tiredness and puffy eyes and mood swings and anxiety. So I'm very aware of that change in my body, certainly over the last couple of years. And to be in the workplace with all those things going on, it's like some days I'm not aware of my mood swings, and like I had an example the other day of one of the partners coming up to me and saying, "You don't seem your normal self," and not feeling able to actually explain, actually I'm having a bad day. And also the worry of being front of house, you know, if I'm tired or if I can't remember things, and if someone asks me to do something and then they come to, and I haven't done it straight away, and then they walk towards me, I look at them and go, oh, I know what you're going to ask me, because you just forget. So you're having to write everything down, and you know, you worry constantly. I constantly worry about things and think, oh God, am I doing this right? Am I doing that right? Is it going to affect my job? And to be able to have someone, you know, to go to and say, I'm having a bad day, and then automatically going, okay, I get what you're saying, would mean so much, you know, rather than having to go through, actually I'm perimenopausal, so please excuse me. You know, you don't want to have to keep having to use that as an excuse, because you don't want people to think, oh, you know, it's that thing again, but you just want to be able to say, I'm not good today.
Yeah.
And that's it.
And just leave it at that. I mean, for me, I started experiencing symptoms when I was 47, and it's almost 6 years now. And I've had a whole combination, they've gone from night sweats where I've literally had to get up 3-4 times a night to change my night clothes or even the bedding, which inevitably has also meant waking up my partner, which didn't go down too well, to extreme fatigue where even though I was having an average of 7 to 8 hours of sleep a night, I'd be sitting at my desk writing an email or something like that, and my eyes would close and I literally couldn't keep them open, which is quite scary. And it's, for me, what I found, and I've had the brain fog, I don't even want to think about how often I've had the brain fog, and that's very stressful for me because I actually use words for a living. And if I can't even string a decent sentence together, that has me worrying about whether I'm doing my job well. You know, is anyone going to pick up on the fact that I'm not doing it so well? But here at Cundall, what I will say is I feel I can be open about the fact that I'm having a bad day. I will frequently tell my manager, I'm having a brain fog day. Don't expect anything coherent out of me today, but however, I can go away and do other routine tasks. So I do feel there is an open environment here where you can talk about it. But I've definitely had days when I have either wondered if I was losing my mind or if I was going to get fired because I just wasn't doing my job well enough. And that makes your stress levels go up, you're anxious, you're not sleeping. It quite frankly is horrendous. So yeah. And what about you, Jenny?
So I've not experienced the menopause yet because I'm a bit young for that, but what I have experienced is my mother's experience of the menopause. So when I was a teenager, my mum started into the menopause and the hormone changes exacerbated and triggered some really severe mental illness problems in her. And the brain fog mixed with what was believed at the time to be early Alzheimer's, but actually was a mental health issue, meant that she didn't get treated for the menopause at all. So she had a huge barrage of symptoms where she just couldn't differentiate what was what. So there was forgetfulness, and she didn't get the classic hot sweats and hot flushes until about 3 years in. So it hadn't been associated at all with what was happening to her. But it ended up driving her out of teaching because she just couldn't classroom manage anymore when she couldn't coherently cope, because she got quite severe depression from it, but also just she had constant brain fog and a couple of other issues that were aggravated quite severely by the menopause, which is also one of the things which isn't frequently mentioned. No. Is those hormone changes can affect underlying issues you already have. Until we did the training, for me, menopause had been the doom which was coming at about 45, because my mum went from a very successful outgoing teacher to 0.
Jenny, you mentioned the training. So recently, in collaboration with GAIN and the Inclusive Leadership Programme that's being run by the D&I team, we've held 2 menopause awareness training sessions very successfully, of which 4 of us took part. And I would be really interested to know from all of you, what was the biggest takeaway from the training that has either led you to have conversations with other people within Cundall or outside Cundall, and also what your thoughts are about how Cundall as a practice and how we as individual employees, whether we are line managers, team leaders or not, how we can support our colleagues, female and male, who might be experiencing an impact from the menopause. Julian?
Yeah, I guess the training was really useful in terms of raising my awareness of the issue, because I would have said to you that I've not really experienced menopause in the workplace at all, but the training has made me realise that clearly it's been around me, I just haven't been aware of it. And I guess it was quite surprising, a little bit shocking to see the scale of the symptoms and to some extent just understand what that means in the workplace environment for women going through the menopause. You know, we spend a lot of time thinking about people's health and well-being, and yet, you know, this is a major part of health and well-being in the workplace, but it's not talked about. It's not really mentioned much at all, but clearly we need to have a bit of a think about how we do support women going through that and create an appropriate environment, workplace, where there is breakout, there's time out, there's an understanding when someone isn't quite performing, that you don't jump to the wrong conclusions and you can just let it go and be supportive, you know, be supportive around it. So I found the training really useful, and I've talked about the training with my partner and with other people in Cundall in terms of what I thought and what I meant, and that's given me the confidence to talk about it a little bit as well.
I think that's the key thing, is if all of us are prepared to have a conversation as open as possible. And I think the key thing is just have an open mindset. You know, how would you deal with a colleague coming to you and telling you they have a mental health issue? I feel that you would deal with somebody coming to tell you they are having problems with the menopause. Hopefully you would deal with it in the same way. In other words, okay, how can we help you? What can we put in place that's going to make your life a little bit easier? That sort of thing. What was your key takeaway from the training, Natalie?
So for me, being on the training, obviously, you know, I know about it, and I took two things away. First of all, I took away the fact that the partners were on the training, and it made me feel more confident to know that they are now going to understand and be supportive. So that made me feel reassured. And one of the other things was, I did know some of the symptoms, but not maybe all of them. And one of the symptoms actually was something I kept banging on about that I have myself. And when I saw it was a symptom, I was like, that's why.
Yep.
That's now why. So I come away feeling a little bit relieved, thinking, that's what I've got. I've been saying I've got this, and now I know it's one of the.
I mean, one of the oddest ones is itchy eyes, which.
See, mine is but the puffy eyes, and I keep saying to people I've got puffy eyes, and they look at me and go, "No, you have anything? Am I going mad?"
Yeah.
But I know I have. They've changed, and when I saw that, I was like, "Thank you."
Yeah. And what about you, Jenny? What did you take away from the training?
It's a lot less doom-laden than I was expecting, which was lovely. I found it very reassuring, also because there was a lot of our senior leadership there, so it was that there will be support when it comes, but also it gave me an insight into the less visible signs of the menopause. So I can actually now pick up on it in other people in my life, like my mother-in-law, where we pointed out to her that maybe that might be what's going on, and actually she's quite relieved that we've mentioned.
That's brilliant.
But also just there are paths to alleviate a lot of the symptoms. That was mentioned a lot of if you are informed, you can go and seek both medical help and broader support within work and outside.
There are medical routes that you can go down to get support, so hormone replacement treatment, that kind of thing. But you can also choose to go down a DIY road where you research supplements and what have you. And then there is diet, there's exercise, there's yoga, Pilates, meditation. There's lots and lots of different things that women can try to alleviate their symptoms, and what will probably happen is that every woman will come up with their own combination that will work for them. And I think the key thing is, once you've sort of realised that this might be what is happening to you, do go to your doctor, do try to get help. But I would warn you, particularly in the UK, sadly, you might have to go several times both or the doctor will agree that that is maybe what's happening to you. What about you, Andy? So you didn't take part in the training, but I know you've spoken to a number of people who have.
Yes.
So
I think, for me, my wife has been, she's going through the start of it, or certainly perimenopausal, and so by osmosis in some ways I've picked that up, and then also because of people have been talking about it, and it was on Yammer, which is why I started talking to you about it.
yes.
And thinking, actually, there's a couple of bits on there that you had talked about that then I could relate them back to some of the symptoms my wife was having as well. So I think that's it's certainly been beneficial for me. I'm a team leader, so I have, although perhaps a little bit young at the moment, but there are, these things are going to come up. And I think the main thing is that, historically, we are a male-dominated industry.
Mm-hmm.
So female concerns or issues or bodily related issues have been a taboo and very difficult to make awareness of or talk about. So I think the main benefit actually is the awareness, and for people to feel more comfortable being able to speak about these things, and for the people that they're speaking to who may have an impact on the way they work, from the leadership side, also being aware of that and being accommodating.
Oh, and another thing I took from the training was that I was telling my two best friends and my sister actually that we were doing it. I was a part of it at work, and that we were having this chance to discuss the menopause, and they were all so jealous because none of them are doing it within their workplaces, and none of them have it, and so we're very jealous. So they all want to work for Cundall,
Which is great. I think Cundall, we're not unusual, but we are still part of a very small group of companies that are actively raising awareness within their companies and amongst their staff. And it's great that we've had the opportunity.
Yeah, from that one, I mentioned in passing to my partner that we'd done the menopause training today, and I'd got to sit into it, and it was really interesting. And he asked me for a set of notes because he had no context, and the realisation that his mum might be coming into that point, and he wanted to be able to support her and me in the future and just other around it, and he's just got no frame of context for it, so actively wanted to know out of curiosity and empathy, which was a brilliant revelation, and just shows how a lot of people will learn with the opportunity.
I've had some amazing feedback from those who've attended the training, really pleasing in that pretty much everybody's walked away having learned something new, but also feeling educated, empowered enough to start a conversation. I had one of the partners say to me that they now feel they can actually raise it in their team meetings with both male and female and quite a lot younger colleagues, and just get them thinking about it, get them talking about it. I think for such a long time it's not been talked about in society, it's not been talked about in the press, it's not even been talked about in families.
I think I've found it useful both in the work context and the home context actually. I feel more comfortable talking about it in a work environment. I feel a little bit, I'm informed, I feel I could have a conversation about it, I understand the language, and I'm sure I'd like to think I could be empathetic in that way, but actually it's also helped me at home because my wife's going through the menopause. It's allowed me to be a bit more aware of what she's going through, and when I look at the symptoms and some of the things that were brought up in the training was just like a moment of deja vu. You know, when you get a flippant comment, I think I'm having an early onset Alzheimer's, you go, I've heard that before, and it just suddenly joins a few dots, and I think it allows you to be more aware, more mindful, but also and more empathetic around the issue. And we need to be able to have an appropriate conversation about these things so that people can feel comfortable in the workplace, do their job, perform, and all of those things. And so it's you know, I feel now I'm armed with the tools to actually help
Which is brilliant.
the business
Yeah.
better, and also personally.
Yeah.
I think there's a risk as well. We've talked about before that it's not just male colleagues that are unaware of the symptoms, that female colleagues are
Yes.
unaware of it as well.
Yes.
And the fact that we can have a little bit more awareness that if, you know, and I've had this at home as well, where there has been, you know, symptoms come out and my wife has probably been unaware of it in terms of her reactions to certain things. And it may be that you know, at home and at work as well, that if more people are aware of it, then even if the person who it's affecting or directly is not aware of it, that we all feel more comfortable that it could be something that could be brought up and discussed.
And I think also another thing that I took away from the training that I forgot to mention was the fact that some of the symptoms actually could be related to other things like diabetes, because I know, so for myself about 4 or 5 years ago I was suffering from migraines terribly, so much so that I went to see a neurologist because I thought I had a brain tumour, and I thought, you know, that my eyes were getting worse and everything else, and I was like, oh my God, what's happening to me? But actually that is a symptom. But at the time I wasn't really aware that that was a symptom. So the training obviously to me pointed out the fact that, you know, people do think some of these symptoms are related to the menopause, but some of them might not be, so it's always best to get checked out.
My key takeaway is there's still not, unfortunately, enough information out there. There is more and more, thankfully. Go away and educate yourselves. No matter what stage of life you're at, no matter where you are in your reproductive life, no matter what gender you are, let's just keep having conversations and just keep talking about it and making it normal. Thank you all so much for your time. And I hope you've all learned something new as well.